Hello and welcome to today's training on good clinical practice compliance. Before we start the training, please ensure that your audio has been enabled. Here at Training Online for You, we want you to get the most out of today's training. So please ensure that all of your distractions are switched off and that we have your full attention. Thank you for purchasing this compliance of GCP. We are a team of dedicated professionals with a wealth of knowledge and experience. We are lucky enough to have a large base of subject matter experts to help us develop all of our e-learning projects, with experience in education, clinical research and personal development. We are experienced in developing training materials to deliver either face-to-face or by effective engaging e-learning programs. Today's training is a short introduction to GCP, where we will explore in more detail how to ensure that you are compliant with the regulations and standards that surround clinical research. It may also help you to identify any areas that you may need more training on. During today's training, we will look at the following. Firstly, we will recap what is ICH GCP. We will look to understand what compliance with GCP means. We will then look to understand the implications of non-compliance with GCP. We will gain knowledge and understanding of the additions to ICH GCP made by the E6R2 addendum. And then finally, we will look at how to understand how GCP compliance applies to each individual and also the company. So, what is ICH GCP? ICH GCP came into being by combining laws, regulations and guidelines. The definition of ICH GCP is as follows: a standard for design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analyses and reporting of clinical trials that provides assurance that the data and reported results are credible and accurate, and that the rights, integrity and confidentiality of trial subjects are protected. The purpose from ICH GCP is to harmonise marketing authorisation requirements, to reduce timelines and cost, and also to reduce subject exposure to investigational products. Next, we are looking at who must comply with GCP. Organisations that may have to comply with GCP include pharmaceutical companies, contract research organisations, universities, NHS hospitals, charities, GP practices, laboratories analysing samples. Basically, anyone taking part in clinical research must comply with GCP. Ensuring compliance with GCP. Compliance with GCP assures patients and the public that the rights, safety and well-being of people taking part in the studies are protected and that research data is reliable. To ensure compliance with GCP, regulatory agencies will ask trial sites to notify them of serious breaches, carry out inspections of trial sites where serious breaches are reported, carry out inspections of trial sites that sponsor clinical trials, mostly based on a risk assessment score, carry out inspections of sites where companies apply for marketing authorisations. So, what happens when we don't comply with GCP? Non-compliance not only affects patient safety, but also affects data integrity, which is of equal importance to the sponsors of the trials we conduct. Poor data also then could impact patient safety if a drug gains a license through data that is not sound and accurate. If a non-pivotal study is found to be GCP non-compliant during an inspection, the applicant or marketing authorisation holder has several courses of action, such as excluding the affected data or providing a justification as to why data should still be included. The European Medicines Agency has stressed the essential role of GCP in a new position paper. It has been made clear that companies cannot replace pivotal trials that do not comply with GCP standards during the assessment of marketing authorization applications. After all, the main purpose of GCP is the protection of the patient. So, we have talked about the guidelines that were written in 1996. It is important also to understand the history behind GCP and where they originated from. This can be found in our full GCP training course. The key thing to note here is that this guidance hadn't been updated for many years and it was revised in 2017, and this revision is known as the ICH E6R2. So, let's now focus more on why we needed an update to GCP. It was over 20 years since these guidelines were released, and many things have changed within clinical research in that time. Some of the reasons for the E6R2 update are as follows. It was amended to encourage the implementation of improved and more effective approaches to clinical trial design, conduct, oversight, recording and reporting, while continuing to ensure human subject protection and reliability of trial results. The increasing use of technology in clinical trial design, conduct, reporting and monitoring is what drove the need for the E6R2 update. The E6R2 update, released in 2017, introduced 26 new additions to ensure exceptional standards in the conduct of clinical trial research. Nothing from the original ICH GCP was removed. So, why did ICH GCP need an update? These are the key reasons for the update added to the ICH GCP introduction. Firstly, trial cost. The scale, complexity and cost of clinical trials has increased tremendously since the original release of ICH GCP. Technology. Technological advances and risk management processes have been redefined to increase efficiency. Electronic data. There has been a shift from paper-based to electronic data to facilitate centralized monitoring. These are still the key areas covered in GCP. It is important to remember that the addendum wasn't a new guidance released. It was merely an addition to the original guidance. It is important that anybody working in clinical research understands the full impact of GCP and how it affects the way we conduct clinical research. The numbers on this slide are the sections of GCP E6 where you will find each of the topics listed. The main changes made were more emphasis on subject protection and data quality, particularly with regards to the investigator and sponsor responsibilities. Previous guidance made no mention of electronic records and the systems, so the new guidance covers how these must be used and also how data must be stored. It also focuses a lot more on risk-based approaches to both monitoring and managing of clinical trials, and a written monitoring plan is now a requirement according to the E6R2. These are some more reasons why the revision was needed. Firstly, increased efficiency. ICH GCP has been amended to encourage implementation of improved and more efficient approaches to clinical trial design, conduct, oversight and recording and reporting. Secondly, increased acceptance. Japan, the USA and now Canada and Switzerland facilitate mutual acceptance of the clinical data from the unified EU standard. Thirdly, other documents. The introduction references other documentation that the E6R2 is to be used in conjunction with, these being E2A, E3, E7, E8, E9 and E11. Electronic data. Standards regarding electronic records and essential documents have been updated to increase trial quality and efficiency. As we mentioned, the original principles of ICH E6 still stand, but the addendum added more information to support these principles. Firstly, paper records. Paper records should be securely stored and protected from damage. Secondly, filing system. Relevant documents need to be located efficiently in order for monitoring and auditing to be carried out. Thirdly, electronic data. Electronic data needs to be securely protected, generated and stored using a validated system. Fourthly, quality management systems. The introduction of QMS applies to the key GCP principles of subject protection and quality data. Investigator and sponsor responsibilities. Addendum ICH GCP E6R2 introduced 26 new items concentrated in the areas of data management, sponsor and investigator responsibilities. Oversight. This section has been amended to include responsibility for oversight of anyone whom they have delegated to any task at the site. For example, the sub-investigator, the nurses and the laboratories. Supervision. Investigators are responsible for supervising any individual or party to whom they delegate trial-related duties and functions. Qualifications. If the investigator retains the services of any individual or party to perform trial-related duties and functions, they should ensure this individual or party is qualified to perform those trial-related duties and functions, implement procedures to ensure the integrity of the trial-related duties and functions performed and any data generated. The R2E6 addendum made the most additions to the role of the sponsor. There was non-compliance. This has been amended to include the need for root cause analysis and corrective action in the case of significant non-compliance. Termination. This new section mentions the requirement to terminate an investigator's participation in a trial if there is a serious or persistent non-compliance, that the sponsor is to report this to the RA. If there is a serious or persistent non-compliance from the investigator, then the sponsor is to shut the site. Reports. This section covers the monitoring of the reports which should be provided to the sponsor in a timely manner for review and follow-up. The reports should document the results of monitoring activities in sufficient detail to allow verification of compliance with the monitoring plan. Why monitor a trial? Monitoring is the act of overseeing the progress of a clinical trial and ensuring that it is conducted, recorded and reported in accordance with the protocol, standard operating procedure and good clinical practice and applicable regulatory requirements. To verify that the rights and well-being of the subjects are protected. To ensure data accuracy and that data is complete and verifiable from the source. To ensure that the trial is conducted in compliance with GCP and local regulations. The R2 Update monitoring section is amended to include the need for a risk-based monitoring plan and the option to use a site centralized monitoring approach. It now includes risk-based, on-site and centralized monitoring, strategy and approach decided by sponsor, documented and justified monitoring plan. Have you heard of the acronym ALCOA? This acronym was used in the original guidance to help us remember key principles when it comes to trial data. It stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, and in the addendum, the addition of the word complete. Since regulatory agencies have added some further suggestions to the list, it's now commonly known as ALCOA Plus. The plus represents the C for complete, C for consistent, and E for enduring, and A for available. This now makes the full acronym ALCOA CCEA. It is good to remember this acronym whenever you are reviewing data. Now, let's take a look at each of these attributes. Attributable. It should be clear who has documented the data. Legible. Readable and signatures identifiable. Contemporaneous. Information should be documented in the correct time frame along with the flow of events. Original. Original, if not original, should be an exact copy. The investigator should have the original source document. Accurate, consistent and real representation of facts. Complete, complete up to that point in time. Consistent, demonstrate the required attributes consistently. Enduring, long-lasting and durable. Available, easily available for review of treating physicians and during audits and inspections. The document should be retrievable in a reasonable amount of time. Recently, 2 more attributes have been mentioned with regard to data integrity. Credible, based on real and reliable facts. Corroborated, the data should be backed up by evidence. Next, we will look at some examples of these attributes. Next, let's work with the following examples and see which attributes of ALCOA Plus are being violated. Firstly, uncertified copy of MRI report. Of course, this is the original attribute which is being violated. Next, unsigned physical exam. This would be the attributable aspect. Next, entry is obscured and unclear. This would be legible. Electronic data recorded on CD. This would be enduring. X-ray report not accessible on another hospital computer system. This would be available. Height and weight recorded in ECRF not consistent with source entry. This would be the accurate attribute. Patient blood group recorded differently in several sources. This would be consistent. And finally, undated entry of vital signs. This would be the violation of the contemporaneous aspect of ALCOA Plus. Data integrity. Integrity of documents for the archival period, which is 25 years in the EU. There needs to be regular readability checks for both paper and electronic records, and where the quality is beginning to decline, it may become necessary to transfer data to new media. This means creating a copy that needs to be certified following procedures that would satisfy an audit trail. The sponsor should not have exclusive control of the data, only copies. The investigator should have control of all essential documents created before, during and after the trial. That is why the investigator should keep their own independent copy of everything. The GCP addendum did not add any requirements to the principle of informed consent. It is important that anybody consenting patients has undergone informed consent training and understands the whole process, as the signing of the informed consent form is not the only part of the consent process. Informed consent is a process that should always be followed. The informed consent process consists of the patient's information sheet, which is the main source of information to subjects taking part in clinical trials. The subject's information consent is documented on an informed consent form. We will now look at the main principles of informed consent. Firstly, the process. Informed consent is a process which is not just simply the documentation of consent on a piece of paper, but involves discussion, questions, and takes time. Secondly, informed. Participants must be fully informed of all aspects of the clinical trial. What the trial involves, how long they will be in the trial for, what are the risks and the benefits of the trial, and what are the alternatives? Only then can they make a fully informed decision about taking part. Thirdly, legal representative. In the case of vulnerable participants, such as those with dementia, those who are unable to give consent themselves, it would be their legal representative who gives consent on their behalf. Fourthly, voluntary. Informed consent must be taken or given freely, with no persuasion from site staff. We will now look at further principles of informed consent. Next, there is documented. Remember, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. This applies more than ever when talking about informed consent. The informed consent form must be signed and dated by the person taking and the person giving consent, but good clinical practice is to also document consent in the patient's medical history. Next, there's competence. Participants must be able to give consent freely and sign and date the informed consent form. Lastly, we've got witness. In the case of a participant who is competent to understand but unable to write, oral consent can be provided in the presence of a witness. The witness must then sign the informed consent form in this capacity. We will now briefly look at informed consent as a one-off process. It is important to note that participants can also withdraw from a clinical trial at any time after they have given their consent to participate. So, what should you do if a patient withdraws? Discuss this decision with the participant to determine their reason for withdrawing, as this information must always be reported to the sponsor on the case report form. Reassure the participant that their decision to withdraw will not in any way affect their right to standard treatment for their condition. Conduct an early termination safety visit, potentially conduct a follow-up phone call with the participant if there are any ongoing adverse events at the time of the withdrawal. This concludes our training on GCP compliance. During today's short training, this is what we have covered. We have looked at what is ICH GCP. We have looked to understand what compliance with GCP means. We looked at understanding the implications of non-compliance with GCP. We've also looked at the additions to the ICH GCP made by the addendum. Finally, we looked at how GCP compliance applies to each individual and company. From everybody here at Training Online for You, thank you very much in taking this training today. Thank you for taking the time to complete this introduction to good clinical practice compliance training. Please be aware that this is only an introductory course and does not fulfill the full requirements of a full GCP certificate. If you do need to complete a full GCP certification, please continue to listen as we will be talking about the benefits of gaining a GCP certificate and also what it means to be recognised by Trancelerate. As a thank you from Training Online for You, we would like to offer you our special offer of using the code CLINICAL20 to receive 20% of any of our clinical courses, which are available on our website at www.trainingonlineforyou.com. Hello, and once again, I would like to thank you for taking the time to take this good clinical practice introductory course. It has been brought to you by Training Online for You. This next section offers bonus content. During this next section, we will look over the following. Firstly, we will have a look at some additional resources. These additional resources are a selection of web links which you can look at in your own time. Secondly, we will look at the benefits of having a full GCP certificate. Next, we will look and discuss at what we mean by Trancelerate recognised. After this, we will look into additional information about gaining a full certification into good clinical practice. Our last slide offers how to contact Training Online for You over a variety of media. Below are some links to some additional resources that you might find helpful now that you have undertaken Training Online's for You introductory course to good clinical practice. First, a link is provided to the FDA website. The FDA is responsible for advancement of the public health for helping innovations that make medical products more effective and safer. This is done by helping the public get the accurate science-based information they need. On the FDA's website, you can find various guidance documents, rules, regulations, and many other insightful documents. Next, a link has been provided to the Good Clinical Practice Network at ICHGCP.net. This link is to the Good Clinical Practice Network. This website gives a full and in-depth details of the ICH GCP guidelines. This site also provides further links to sites such as the FDA and the MHRA. A link to Trancelerate Biopharma has also been provided. Trancelerate aims to collaborate across global biopharmaceutical research and development with the intention of implementing effective and high-quality new medicines. Our GCP course can be found on their website as a provider of Trancelerate recognised GCP course. Next, we will discuss the benefits of having a full GCP certificate. Everyone who is involved in the process of conducting clinical research must be the following: qualified by education, have adequate training and experience, be competent to perform tasks. The aim of GCP training is to protect the safety and the rights of patients and to ensure the quality of results. By completing GCP training, you are ensuring that you are working to the same quality and standards as others collaborating on clinical research. During this short introduction to GCP, we have recognised the term Trancelerate. We will now look into what we mean by being Trancelerate recognised. Trancelerate was originally set up by major pharma companies as a joint venture. The aim was to standardise and address common problems within drug development. Trancelerate has created effective and innovative solutions for the biopharmaceutical community and is widely recognised across the clinical trial industry. By having a Trancelerate recognised GCP certificate, it gives sponsors, investigators and organisations peace of mind. To be granted with a certification that is recognised by Trancelerate, there are strict regulations which must be met. Here at Training Online for You, we do provide a full GCP certification which has been recognised by Transcelerate. This is a professionally developed, interactive and engaging online course. It incorporates the ICH E6 R2 update which was implemented in June 2017. It is suitable for anyone carrying out or involved in clinical research and will provide individuals with official certification in GCP that is widely accepted across sponsors and CROs. Chapter 1 will discuss what is GCP. This chapter will give you the historical background to GCP, look at why we should have GCP, discuss the principles of GCP and also look at key things to remember. Chapter 2 will focus on the Independent Ethics Committee. This will have an IEC and Competent Authorities section and also a review of the IEC and CA responsibilities. Chapter 3 will focus on investigator responsibilities. Chapter 4 will focus on the features of an informed consent form. Chapter 5 will look at sponsor responsibilities. What is a sponsor and what do they do? It will also look in depth at sponsor responsibilities. Chapter 6 will focus on monitor responsibilities. This chapter will look at why monitor a trial and also verifying subject data. Chapter 7 will focus on safety and adverse event reporting. So this section will focus on patient safety, the reasons for and elements of safety reporting, what to do when the adverse events and serious adverse events or SUSAR occur. Chapter 8 will focus on the clinical trial protocol, so this will look at the protocol structure and content and also the investigator's brochure. Chapter 9 looks at recording and reporting, so we will look at the types of data knowledge, focus on Alcoa Plus and also reporting of the ADR and SUSAR. Finally, in Chapter 10, this focuses on essential documents, documentation before, during and after clinical trial, general rules for archiving essential documents. At the bottom of this slide, you can see a link which will take you directly to our website and give you more details about the full certification for our GCP course. We have now come to an end of our training of an introduction to good clinical practice. You have now reached the end of the bonus content. Training Online for You have a variety of ways in which you can contact them. If you go to our website of www.trainingonlineforyou.com, we offer a variety of courses, not just in clinical research, but in many other topics. Our Good Clinical Practice full course can be found on the website. You can also find us on LinkedIn. We also have a Facebook page, and for any inquiries, please contact info@trainingonlineforyou.com. Once again, thank you for taking the time to take this short introduction to GCP. Thank you from everybody here at Training Online for You.